If you want to be a multi-million-dollar agent, how long do you think it roughly takes?
It's a good question.
And what other essential skills does an agent need to develop? So young people, did you hear that?
Living in a house isn't enough to say that you've got experience with the process.
And you never know when it's going to repay you.
People will respect you in the marketplace because of that.
Real estate will bash you sometimes.
I think there was definitely a challenge there at the time. You just need to do more of everything, basically.
It's a big pie. There's plenty for everyone, but you do have to work hard. One way to get listings is generate agents. Welcome to the Get Keen podcast, your number one destination for learning how to get the most out of your real estate career. I'm Dan Lee, founder of Plum Property, one of Queensland's largest independent real estate offices, and Plum Partners, where we've helped dozens of agents create, run, and grow their very own agencies. On Get Keen, I chat to high-performing agents, principals, and agency owners, so you have the tools, strategies, and insights to grow your business and live the best life for yourself and your family. Now let's get keen. Yes, we are back with Get Keen, baby. I know why you're here. I know why you're listening, because you're probably an agent in the real estate business and you want to further your career. You want to learn from the best. Good for you. I like that attitude. And I only bring you the best guests to learn from on the Get Keen podcast. And have I got you one of the best today? I've been excited for this one for a while. She's been on my to-call list for way too long. I didn't get her on for my first couple of episodes because I was like, she's too good for this. But she thankfully said yes. I can't believe I've got her here. We're talking about a lady in the LJ Hooker network with a 20-plus year sales career. We've got a little bit of history, actually. We used to compete against each other. But she does over $120 million of sales every year. That's the total value of all the property she sells, over 120 million. That's about 120 sales at $1 million, which is her average sale price out in the Redlands. Thank you for joining us, Nyree Ewings. Yeah!
Thank you so much.
Nice. The crowd's going wild. The people listening are clapping and cheering. We just can't hear them yet. Nyree, thanks so much.
Thank you. It's my privilege.
You had to drive 45 minutes from the Great Redlands to get here to the Big Apple.
I didn't take Coronation Drive, so I went through a tunnel somewhere. God knows. I think I was under Mount Cootha somewhere.
You're in like
no man's
alien
land.
territory.
I don't know where I am.
You know, out away from your little bubble out there of beautiful homes. But I was excited to have you on, Nyree, because we have history, actually, don't we?
Yep.
We go right back to our early beginning careers.
I think we did a panel together.
We did a few panels, actually, when we were
I think
young.
Tyler might have been on one.
Tyler could have been on one, yeah. He was very up and coming at the time, and we were very early in our careers, like 23, 24, and we were sort of the young guns coming through the LJ Hooker network, and I always actually I might be getting this out in the open now, but I always sort of secretly competed against you, because you were always the one that I was like, she's the same age as me, where we started at the same time. And
now you own a business and I don't.
That's okay. That doesn't mean anything. You're still very successful at what you do. And in fact, we were always neck and neck for many years, kind of like you were doing a little bit more than me, I was doing a little bit more than you. Eventually you overtook me and I kind of admitted defeat that maybe you're just way more likable than me or prettier than me. I don't know what it is. But
maybe I just had a bigger geographical zone to handle.
Let's call it whatever we want. You were better than me, all right? And I'll admit it now after, I'll get it. I'm trying to come to terms with it, okay?
Therapy.
This is therapy. That's why I do the podcast. But you have had an amazing career, Nyree, 20-plus years in sales. You've been with the same network the whole time and the same area, same office pretty much. Like people would look up to you and just think, I would love to have a career like that. I would love to be able to say in 20 years that I'm making that much success, that much money, been able to stay at the same place and been happy enough in my position. So some questions that I thought of that would be really helpful for people to know, like what core principles or habits did you develop as an early agent in your 20s to get off the ground and get running?
I think, even if you sort of strip it back to basics, and I don't think it matters what age you are when you sort of start your career, but obviously early on as well. I think it's the follow through. So, doing what you say you're going to do. And I think it's just, having a really helpful attitude. Even if you can't get something out of it now, or you're not going to get a transaction out of it now, the reality is that helping people will help you down the track anyway. So just taking care of people.
So how did you help people to get those first listings then?
Well, back then I was on the window, so I was running buyers. So I ran more buyers than I did listings at the time.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's talk about that because we often talk about doing
It's changed a little now.
Well, it has. There's a lot of good core principles that are still the same. But one way to get one way to get listings is generate market appraisals,
Yeah.
which starts a relationship with a homeowner, and then nurturing over time, then eventually gets you an opportunity. Tell us about working with buyers, how you would get listings off that.
So working with buyers initially and assisting them in that process, I guess, obviously we had the internet then too, but people were still, sort of very actively coming to an office to discuss opportunities. And I guess what hasn't changed is people are still approaching us now for, say, off-market, pre-market, or, sort of something that we've appraised to sort of get an early step in as well. So, helping people with their purchasing journey, even if it's not one of my listings, even if it's just an opinion about somebody else's, that I feel like I can assist them with some information to make a decision about, to make an informed decision. So eventually they become a homeowner and they know homeowners, or they have other property, or they've got a property that they need to sell in a subject to sale process, or through a bridging situation as well. So, that core principle, I guess, of just having the right intentions from the start, which is to assist people rather than assisting my pocket straight away.
That's really interesting what you say, because I know I used to work in an office, the only other office I ever worked in.
Yeah.
And I remember that we never had any training about working with buyers. It was always find the sellers, get the appraisals, build relationships with sellers. And a buyer would walk into the office and, someone from a reception would come out and say, oh, there's a buyer out the front looking for someone. Can someone go help them? And all the salespeople would hide their heads down and not want to do it. Like, oh, that's
Yeah.
a waste of time.
We were rostered on Sundays too. So, we were also had a roster the whole way during the week too. So, we were obviously still putting in, a big amount of time to prospect to find sellers too. So whether that was door knocking, which I wasn't sensational at, or whether those were other activities, working with a buyer, eventually they're going to have something to sell regardless. So
would you work with all buyers, or are you specifically looking for buyers that have something to sell when they buy, or are you just trying to help everyone? And
I think it was just helping everybody at the time,
Yeah.
and just sort of seeing what opportunities became of that then and then of that later as well.
How would you stop from wasting your time? Like, how do you identify who to give a lot of effort to? And
Well, I don't know that I had the skill sets back then, so I probably did waste heaps of time. But, eventually you build relationships, and whilst those people might not have even still transacted 20 years later, they still know who you are. And you know that at some point they're still talking about you to recommend you to people as well, because you have helped so many times with conversation. Qualifying buyers, I don't know, is something that we sort of necessarily had lots of skill set at, 18 years ago. But, I think we're all sort of getting better at it. But, just those typical questions around, if you found something today, are you in a position ready to buy, or, all that sort of jazz as well. So just all that sort of simple qualifications. But I think you get an opportunity when you're sort of either working with buyers or working on a window. You've got to have a listing to run an open home to have a conversation with a buyer anyway. But you're getting the opportunity to test your own communication skills. And I think that, the biggest skill set that you can flex at that time is probably market knowledge and stock knowledge. And that was probably something that, from a core perspective, sort of set me apart then and still sets me apart now. So you could ask me about somebody else's listings in the area and I can still tell you about them.
yeah, that's such a great
I have
angle
this
to go.
sick data storage in my head.
So did you do much of the traditional cold calling, finding appraisals, that kind of stuff, or were you strictly going down I'm going to help buyers until a buyer eventually wants to sell with me?
Yeah, look, I definitely tried the cold calling. I got heaps of, sort of kickback from the do not call register and warnings from that as well. And then I tried door knocking and I wasn't super duper successful at that either. But, all these years later, I did end up selling one that I did door knock as well. So, I think just, I don't know that it was a conscious decision at the time, rather than there just seemed to be more buyers in the market and more people to talk to, and they were coming to the office at that point. We had a really large window display and a really large office at the time, so it was valuable to have the opportunity to be on roster.
Does your team still work with buyers like that today?
No, it doesn't. And I guess that's probably a little bit of market change and a little bit of change in direction as a business within inside the business as well. Obviously the buyers that we're meeting now are at open homes. So that's our captive audience. They're already in real estate mode rather than the cold call and the cold door knock. There's obviously a lot of warm stuff that goes out, but there's the cold stuff that goes out would still be, the just listens or the just solds and the unconditional letters and that kind of stuff as well.
But that would be your recommendation to a new agent: work with buyers. It's activity. You might be helping a lot of people.
Activity breeds activity.
Yeah.
Get comfortable with your conversation with a buyer first, because there's usually more buyers than there are sellers, and then you can sort of start to and they more than 50% of the time they still own a property anyway. So I think it's just sort of perfecting your communication skills and that kind of stuff, and your market knowledge, and then start unleashing and trying to find sellers too.
And you never know when it's going to repay you. And that's the hard thing about real estate, isn't it? Is sometimes these favors and this help that you give people, it comes back to reward you 5 years later.
Yep.
And you're well established by this stage and you're doing really well. And all of a sudden someone calls you up and says, "Oh, hey, Nyree, you actually helped me when I was buying 5 years ago. We want to sell this house now."
Yep.
And, so many agents, they don't want to bother with that kind of stuff because they want the catch and kill now.
Yep.
So, look, if an agent wants to become a multi-million-dollar agent, right, I think any agent has the ability to be somewhat successful and earn a living if they do, certain practices and be consistent. But if you want to be a multi-million-dollar agent, selling your type of numbers, 100 plus homes, how long do you think it roughly takes for an agent to get there from ground zero with, not any market share and what steps should they take?
I've seen other people do it in a couple of years. Whether they're an exception to the rule, I would suggest they are. Even a couple of local agents in our area have gone from zero to some big numbers really, really quickly. And I hats off. I think it's amazing because you kind of know how much work is in there to get all of that done as well. But I think typically, it's going to build up in stages and you sort of might get there by sort of maybe year 5.
Year 5. So what can an agent expect after maybe year 1 year? How did it go for you?
I guess depending on how you sort of kick into the industry, maybe year 1 or 2 could be aligning yourself with another salesperson and either working inside a team to understand a team structure as, so like a sales associate. Not everybody comes just straight in green into the industry because somebody's got to teach them something. So they've got a 1 or 2 year, I guess, sort of, warm up, lead in and learning opportunity. And then they sort of start to, release into the wild a little bit and start, developing their own sense of style, career, and confidence, and I think that by that point that they're getting known in their marketplace as well, and they can start to sort of ramp up activity. So if you think that 100 letterbox drops is enough, then you need to sort of be increasing those numbers. You just need to do more of everything, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what other essential skills does an agent need to develop from those early years to that 5 year mark where they might be really successful?
I think learning how to multitask is a big thing, and not losing, I guess, that authentic touch inside your own business and that personalised approach to your clients too. It's what they appreciate. They don't want to feel like they're in a sausage factory when there's 100 transactions happening in the business. I'm sure that some of my competition use that against me at times, but I'm still personally involved in every single transaction that happens as well, and making sure that I'm still negotiating every single sale for a seller if they're the ones who employed me at the table, and I'm their lead agent still.
Yeah, okay. So, because that does get hard when you're running that many transactions to give everyone that personal touch.
Yeah.
What other strategies do you use to make your clients feel special like that?
Well, I guess empowering people within the team as well and building their confidence levels and their ability to also communicate with our sellers and know that it's not just my job too. So having them not just introduce themselves and also, communicate with buyers, but communicate with the sellers throughout the process as well, but also introducing them to the sellers directly and ending conversation even at a listing presentation. So instead of just my big mug on the front page, it's actually the team now.
Right.
And so, we're sitting there at a listing presentation saying, well, this is the team, these are the people that you're going to hear from, and these are the people that you're going to work with, throughout that time as well. So, helping the other secondary agent inside my team, so Ludwig, who's currently working with me, build a relationship even even with my sellers, and then, knowing that they can all contact each other without me as well.
Yeah, so getting your whole team involved in the sale is
Yeah.
important. I know
Is to get scale.
some agents are very scared to kind of advertise the other
I
people
have been.
in their team. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I
I've
have a
been
very
there.
successful agent in my agency who's completely changed now. But
Hmm.
there was a time when I won't say who it is. Oh well, I will. It's Liz Browning. She's amazing, but
Yep.
she's really struggled.
I've referred business to her as
Yeah,
well.
and
So,
she's such an
yeah.
amazing agent. And she went through this time where her team was building,
Mm.
and she didn't want to put her agents on the sign or with her, or
Yeah.
sort of introduce them to the team because she was scared that her clients wanted Liz.
Yeah.
And if she introduced her team, they would think, "Oh, I'm getting the second best." But if you set that up properly,
Yeah.
your clients almost respect it more. They know that one agent selling 120 properties can't do that on their own. They respect the fact that you've got a business unit.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
So it's the way you explain it to them.
And I think that's a difference between sort of just being an individual agent who might be writing sort of, 20 a year, and respect there's still plenty of people who do that and make a really great living. And potentially those people have even a higher sale price than I do too. Being a, 100 property plus writer or being $1 million agent, it's maybe not on everybody's radar. It's not everybody's first goal in real estate to be $1 million agent. I still remember that whole tone when we came through things about being $1 million agent, and it seemed so far out of the realms, back then. And it's so much more, possible now because of the number of transactions that are happening through the Brisbane market, but also because of the increase in value that we've all had. I mean, I still think when we were back on, panels in sort of, 08, 09, I think my average sale price was probably like 400 or 450 even at best on a
Yeah.
good year. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember getting to 500 GCI was a big deal.
Yeah.
I think, and $1 million in the Elder Hooker network was the gold, and there was
I think Captain's Club was like 220 back then.
well, at
And
the
then I
start
think
it was
there was
220.
multi-millions was 330.
330.
Yeah.
And then it went up to 350 like 5 years later. And I remember gold was $1 million, and there was like two people in Queensland who were gold, and that was, that was the top. Now it's, it's way easier to get to $1 million. It's still not
Plenty
easy,
of
but
business out there for everybody.
yeah,
There
it's
really
is. It's a big pie. There's plenty for everyone. But you do have to work hard. Hey guys, just quickly, if you're loving this content and you're a real estate agent that's already thinking what it might be like to have your own real estate business and brand, then check out the show notes. There'll be a link to our Plum Partners website where you can leave an inquiry and me or one of my team members will reach out. We help agents to create, run, and grow their own real estate business and brand so they can earn more and set up a better future for themselves. So get keen, get in touch. Now let's get back to the episode. So how do you introduce your team? Like, do you take them to your listing presentation and say, this is what I'm going to be doing, this is what they're going to be doing? How does it work?
Sometimes it's difficult to know, when you've taken a call either from somebody that you either know and you're not sure if they're just price checking or actually selling, and sometimes they can disguise themselves as one or the other as well. So not always is the team with me necessarily, no. We just don't actually have the man hours to sort of be, sort of hijacking everybody to bring them in. But the intro is there on the first page, basically. So when I get the folder out and we're sort of talking, it's the first page that's there as well. So it's an intro right from the start. On all of my advertisements, on all of my sort of property advertisements, Ludwig's on the signage, he's on the brochures, he's on the just listed and just solds, and he's on the REA ads and all that sort of stuff as well. So he's there. It'd be hard not to have noticed him by the time I'm in the door.
Yeah.
But it's okay if they haven't, because it's still the intro from the lead agent to say, this is the team that support me, this is how we do the volume that we do, and this is how you're not going to be lost in the factory when it happens.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
To be an agent of your caliber, you got to be consistent. Like, that's one of the things, right?
Huge.
It's probably if there's a silver bullet,
It's consistency.
it's consistency.
Yeah.
Showing up every day, no matter if it's a cloudy day or a sunny day. Do you have bad days though?
I think I have bad moments, not bad days anymore. And I think that my leadership style is definitely by example, leading by example. And so that's me turning up into the office every day. I walk in there with the team. They might be there at 8:30. I might be there at 8. They might be there at 8:30. I might be there at 9. But I roll in somewhere, between those. But it doesn't mean that I haven't started work at home already as well. But we walk in and we have a whip. So we have a team meeting right at the the start, so I can tell them what happened overnight that they're not aware of, and where some of the negotiations are up to that they sort of might have gone to sleep on, but I'm still going with it as well. Because again, at the table with the seller, I said to them, I'm going to handle the negotiations no matter what, and that can continue through the night. So being consistent with that as well, and not flaking back on that example with my team, but also with my clients as well. But I think, like you said, consistency is a huge thing. So it's not just showing up and being there. The staff can have a bad day, and it's okay for them to have a bad day or a bad moment too. But I think I've reduced my reaction or overreaction to situations, and just bring a nice sort of level calmness. I mean, I had a shit hour the other day. I was angry for about an hour.
Yeah.
Something
happened?
Oh, just a conveyancer that was annoying the shit out of me. But that's
They
okay.
always
It's
step
just
in
about
and
stupid shit, and it was just an ego problem from them to somebody else, and it's all good. It just annoyed me for about an hour, and then I just let it go and moved on.
So how do you stay on track when, like, on days when you're not feeling it?
At particularly low points, when I have reevaluated why I'm doing what I'm doing, or if I really am the expert that I think that I am, or that other people say that I am. I think what can be really humbling is just getting back into, I guess, the grassroots and having conversations with the people, whether they're either people that you've done business with before, or just having some really sincere and genuine conversations about trying to help people again. So that's my call that I come back to and remind myself that that it's not always about ka-ching the dollar down. Just getting back to helping people, and that's one of my core values. That's what makes me get up in the morning, is helping people.
Yeah. It can be very stressful at the top. It's stressful at the bottom, and it's stressful at the top.
Yeah,
I
it's
prefer the
weird.
stress at the top.
Well, it's well remunerated stress.
Yeah. The financial side of it helps. But like, to you, what's the most stressful thing about real estate?
Great question. I mean, there's no such thing as work-life balance, right? That's just ludicrous, this conversation we keep having.
Well, I think there is such thing. But it always changes. It's not like, I'll get there in 6 months and it will be perfect. It will be, one pillar's it needs work right now, and you'll fix that, and something else will need work in 6 months.
And you make the adjustment as needed as well.
So it's always like you got these 6 different pillars swinging, and to get them all aligned, they might be all aligned for a moment in time, but forever, never.
Yeah, it's just a pendulum, isn't it?
So it's just it's throughout life a juggling act of getting that balance. I think we'll strive to have it perfect, but it's never perfect.
Once you can manage scale and volume, then it becomes different, and you've got to sort of start letting go. So whether it's myself or Liz or other people that are sort of writing bigger numbers, you've just got to learn how to let go of some of the activities that don't need you anymore.
I remember one time I met you at a conference. This is like, it would be like 8 years ago or something, maybe longer.
Yep.
It was a while back, but I was like, how's it all going? You're like, I just left last week. And I was like, what? What do you mean? He's like, I just had enough. I packed up and I left. And I'm like, what? And you're like, yep. I said, I'm done. I left the office and I didn't come back for a week. I didn't answer my phone.
Yeah, that was an interesting time.
So there have been moments.
There definitely have. I reckon that was probably close to like maybe 12 or 13 years ago now.
What happened then?
I had just worked myself into the damn ground 7 days a week. And so that was a lot. So 7 days a week consistently, work, and not getting, I guess, any balance whatsoever. And I hadn't taken any me time for about 3 years. As I worked myself into the ground, I think it was like, it was awful.
Okay.
And I needed a damn break. So you're right, I threw the keys across the table and I disconnected my phone.
You literally cooked your noodle. And
totally.
But we want to avoid that.
I'd lost my direction. I'd lost my way. I'd lost my why. I'd lost a lot of stuff.
So how did you come back from that, and what have you done to avoid running into that situation again?
So I definitely haven't run into the same scenario. I've definitely been able to prioritize myself, and also, have had plenty of psychology since then as well to make me mentally fit. A lot of people in the industry obviously talk about being physically fit. I could have room for improvement on that for sure, but being mentally fit to handle the amount of stress that comes in with it, and the multitasking and the volume and everything that goes on as well. So
So
I
have you,
think I'm
do you see
really
a psychologist?
I had, yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon I had seen one on and off for like close to a decade when all of that sort of stuff.
Was that really good? Obviously, really good for you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I feel like I'm in like I love superannuation fund for Frank, but I think it was probably the best coaching I'd ever had, and I guess that's my view on it too. Is that I look at it like it was a coach now. Everybody sort of wants to invest in a real estate coach because they think it's going to make money, but I think at the core you probably need to sort out your own shit, your own issues first before
Yeah.
you can sort of really start to elevate in your business. Because it's about being authentic, about being with people, and you've got to really sort of sort out your own bullshit.
I've had a lot of real estate coaches before, but I've never been to a psychologist. But they're very similar. I mean,
Correct.
even a real estate coach
Yeah.
just goes into a lot of like your
Yeah.
own mental
Totally.
day and how you're coping with
Yeah.
things and that kind of stuff. How much does a psychologist cost? I'm actually curious.
$220, I
So
think, an
that's
hour.
actually very good value. That's way cheaper than a real estate coach.
Isn't it?
It is. It is. That's great value if you're getting that.
One's going to help you sort out like your life trauma and your family trauma and all that kind of stuff. And I think that if you can sort of, work through some of those challenges
Got
too.
anyone you recommend?
Yeah, yep, I'll give you the details after the session.
Maybe we'll put them in some show notes. Okay.
But, I think, you've got to decide what's right for you at the time. And sometimes you don't know what that is, whether it's speaking to a doctor, whether it's speaking to a psychologist, or whether it is having a coach, or whether it's having all of those things at once. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I was there sort of weekly. Sometimes it's only every couple of years I roll in now and say, am I perceiving this situation right? Am I judging this correctly? Is my behavior right? And the thing is, you can ask all of the people around you that you know and that you love and that you trust, but they have a bias with you. They have either a bias with you or a bias against you based on their own personal experiences, and the other person doesn't. And it helps to talk to somebody who's also not in the industry.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Really good advice. I love that.
Yeah.
Taking you back to the younger years, because you were very successful in your 20s, and that can be very challenging for, young men and women. We look young, we're, selling a big asset for people. Did you find that being in your early 20s made it more difficult to list properties?
I think so. I think there was definitely a challenge there at the time, and I think that buying a property myself, I think before I'd actually started off at Hookers, I was back at Century 21 then, and I was doing contracts and administration. So I'd bought a house with my sister. I didn't have a partner at the time, so it sort of seemed like a great logical idea for the both of us to get into the market. And I think that was, to me, I think the learning experience that I gained from that, where I could actually say, well, I've purchased a property, I've been through the process, I do own real estate, so that I'm not just somebody that's trying to flog a product who's not involved with it. So, living in a house isn't enough to say that you've got experience with the process as well. I'm not saying you have to own a house to be in real estate, but it certainly does help sort of being that authentic self and sort of looking somebody in the eyes and going, well, my experience was when I was with it. And it's understanding and putting yourself in their shoes because you've worn them.
Yeah, okay. So what about for some young people in their 20s who haven't bought a house yet? They're getting into real estate and they're just how to overcome that confidence issue of their age. What do you think, some tools?
Well, I think market knowledge and stock knowledge. I think that when you become an expert in the area that you want to be in, whether it's one suburb, two suburbs, or, whatever sort of shire or city or area you're going to be in, I think it's sort of knowing, the iconic sales, every sale, histories of sales, and all of those things as well. I think that, despite how young you are, if you have the information, you can come across like the most knowledgeable person who's there without ego, then people will respect you in the marketplace because of that. And they've only got to have a conversation with you to know that too.
That's huge. So young people, did you hear that coming from the best in the Redlands, Nyree Ewings, who was very successful in her 20s, in order to overcome being young in real estate and people doubting you because of your age? Be an expert on the market knowledge. Know more than your competitors. What's sold in the area, what prices are, what's on the market. If you're the holder of all the knowledge and you can speak confidently about the market, people will be confident to list their property with you. Talk about marketing, because you've done some great marketing over the years. I remember that Ryan Gosling thing you used to do all the
Oh,
time.
God.
I'm sure people
Yeah.
hated it. Some people
Oh,
loved it.
I look back and I cringe now.
Yeah, you know
Yeah.
what? I always thought it was pretty funny, and whether you cringe or not, it was harmless. It
Yeah.
wasn't offensive.
It was a bit of fun.
It was a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And it was catchy. I thought it was really good. I thought you should have kept it going, but you probably got over it.
I had Sheldon there for a little bit. I had Eva Longoria. They all sort of
Did ya?
rolled out.
I
For
missed
those who
those
don't
ones.
know,
I
there's
only ever saw Ryan
cardboard
Gosling.
cutouts. That's what they
The
are.
algorithm kept feeding me Gosling. I
Yeah,
must
yeah.
have a thing for him.
Yes.
Can you think of like one other marketing thing that you've done in the past that's really worked to help you get seller leads or helped your personal brand?
I think obviously having for sale signs in the area has made a really big difference. I've never done a bus stop or a billboard until probably a couple of months back, ever in my whole career. Have I ever done them? So I think my signboards have been really good for that because my name has always been very big on them, and I've been
Okay.
very big about having a big name on them.
Yeah.
All for the brand and all that sort of stuff too, but I'm all for me too because the brand doesn't pay my mortgages.
Sure.
So, it's always had to have been really important to have my name quite big. So signboards have been a big thing. But, when we sort of said consistency earlier, it's consistency, I think, that's delivered me lots of business, and consistency with, not pulling back on marketing activities, even the small things and the little things like the just listers and the just solds. So I haven't actually changed that activity base at all.
Yeah.
And it's been consistent.
So really just consistency over those very basic things that we all know.
Yeah,
like
totally.
every listing you get, the flyers go out, the sign goes up.
I've had so many
big
people
name.
tell me, oh, you should be running an online Facebook marketing campaign for this property or that property, and all the rest of it as well. And, I've put my toe in the water there for a few different things. And what works for me doesn't always work for everybody else. And sometimes I could probably have a full-time media person myself as well who could handle all this stuff too. But sometimes you just can't cover every base at the same time.
So the basics work the best for you.
Out in my area,
Yeah.
because we're not in a city. People do still check a letterbox.
Do you think it matters what area you're in? I mean, humans are humans.
Humans are humans at the end of the day, but if you were in like a high-rise apartment zone or something like that in the middle of the city, maybe a just listed or a just sold wouldn't work in the same way we do it. Maybe they don't check their mailboxes as much, or maybe there's more investors than there are owner-occupiers that are there as
that's
well,
true.
and they're not walking the dog and going for a walk in the sun down to the water and checking the mailbox when they get home and that kind of stuff too. So, sort of learn what works in your space. Don't be afraid to try different things until you sort of realise, what the important one is.
Yeah, awesome. Find out what works and then go bigger on that. Yeah?
Yeah, and scale
okay,
that.
We're running out of time, but one more question for those that look up to an agent like you, successful, 20 years in the industry, 100 million in sales. What one piece of advice, one non-negotiable they need to lock in now?
It's a good question. And it's hard to sort of just come up with one. But I think it's really getting clear on what your intention is. Getting really crystal clear on why you're doing it.
Why do you do it?
I really love helping people. It's really gross. It's still the same thing. And I'm still 7 days a week now. And I still love it.
You're still 7 days a week?
Still 7 days a week. I sit in bed and scroll on REA still. And it creates a fight at home. But I still love it. And people pick that up energetically when they're having conversations with me.
Maybe the answer is right there. It's the obsession. Be obsessed.
Be obsessed.
with the industry you're in
Yeah.
and being the best. Because
Yeah.
I think you are. You don't realize it, but you're obsessed with being the top agent. And
it's hard to get there and it's hard to stay there. It's hard not to be there. It's hard to be in the middle of there and it's hard to be there as well. But I'm still hungry. I'm 41. I've got 20 years to go.
Yeah, everything's stressful. Alex Hormozy said a great thing I saw it on Instagram. He's like, it's stressful being not busy. It's stressful being kind of busy.
I would say it gets a bit weird. Hey, I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm a failure. What am I doing? And I still have those moments too.
Yeah.
I'm just going, it's not busy enough. I don't feel, scattered enough all over the place. What's going on? Is the phone working? Do I just need to restart that? Is something wrong with my network right now?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's like every stage is stressful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a different stress. But it's stressful not being busy. It's stressful being really busy.
If I go away on holidays.
It's stressful being kind of good, but seeing all these people being way better than you.
Yeah.
Everything's stressful.
Yeah. It's just how you handle it.
How you handle it.
And
to
Yeah,
keep
find
calm.
find
right?
that calm
keep
middle road.
calm. Don't let your emotions
Totally.
go
I don't think I have the
too
high
wild.
highs and the low lows.
That's a good thing.
I think I'm
It's a good
right
thing.
in the middle.
You don't want those high highs and the highs are great, but like you want to keep level.
Yep.
Because real estate will bash you sometimes, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Nyree. You've been so awesome, so valuable to be on this podcast today.
Appreciate
and
it.
appreciate your time.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you for tuning into the Get Keen podcast. If today's episode inspired you, please show your support with a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And make sure you subscribe on your favorite platform too. Don't stop there. Join our community of forward thinkers by connecting with me on social media at Dan_Lee_Plum. I'm looking forward to exploring more strategies and insights with you on your journey to the top. Until next time, keep getting keen.